Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at the next batch of new cards. They were released on Twitter. Most of these I've seen from other sources, mostly Japanese translations, but these are all the English ones that Cygames themselves have printed out. Hoping that they didn't make any mistakes. They did make a mistake with Radiant Artifact, which I already covered in my video after they'd fixed it, so that's fine, but just so you know, they do make mistakes, so translations, even from themselves, are not always 100%. But I believe in this case they're pretty much 100% accurate, or close enough that it's no real actual issue. So we'll jump right to the beginning of these here. Just give you a quick little snapshot of each one, why not? Soulcaller, this one's pretty interesting. A 3-drop 2/3. Whenever an allied follower, excluding ghosts, is destroyed during your turn, summon a ghost. It's Haunted House with a body. So you get a 2 play point 2/2 plus Haunted House as one card, which is nice. I can see this card being quite good in maybe an aggro deck if aggro comes back. I don't know if it will, just based on the cards we've seen so far, but you never know what else could come out, especially with Shadow's new mechanics. We don't quite know what they are, but it'll be exciting to know what they are soon. Other than that, you're probably going to run this in something like mid or even unlimited Atomy decks. Like those will probably be okay with this card because they already run Haunted House, but you may just run that instead. Otherwise, this card I would say is definitely in the good tier of cards. It's not bad, it's not overpowered, at least not with what is either currently available or out of combos that I can think of, especially since it excludes ghosts. You're not going to have anything wonky happen. So this card's quite interesting, and that's about it for that one. Next we have Endearing Succubus Lilith, 3-drop 1/5. Fanfare, give your leader the following effect. Whenever your leader takes damage during your turn, recover 1 play point. This effect lasts until this follower leaves the area. So similar to how Witch works, with this lasts until this follower leaves the area. So as long as it's on board, you'll always get this effect. This thing is very interesting, especially with Razor Claw and Blood Drain, I think it is. Pretty sure. Anyway, the 2 PP, draw 2, deal 2 damage to yourself, because it practically makes them 1. Not entirely, but for the most part. As long as you have at least 2 play points available to you, you can recover up to at least 1 play point. So, say you've got, I don't know, turn 7, you play this, you drop a Razory, you've now got 3 points left, you drop a another Razory, you've still got 1 more play point left as an extra out of that 7, and then you could easily drop an Ambling Wraith or something like that. That, of course, would probably be in an unlimited situation where Ambling Wraith would still be usable, but the Razories are still usable in rotation because they are basics. So I can see this card working with those really well, and any other cards that are added to the deck that deal damage to your face. This will probably work best in, say, a Vengeance deck or a Control deck. Aggro, I'm still a little iffy on, just dependent on what we get. In Unlimited, I could definitely see this fitting into an aggro deck, though, in some capacity. Probably just replacing maybe Urias, maybe not Urias. I'm not really sure what you'd replace, but I'm sure you could squeeze at least 1 to 2 copies of this in there as kind of a small combo piece, which Aggro Blood does quite well with things like Vania anyway, so it's a pretty good card, not bad for a gold. 1/5 stat line is pretty meh, but the effect kind of makes up for that. Then we've got Sister of the Sword, a 2-drop 2/2, pretty standard. Havencraft, Fanfare, give an allied follower ward. So seems like Haven's really pushing the ward mechanic a little more, especially when you look at the legendary and this card as an example. Not bad. I mean, we're going to be probably aiming for more stallouts. Aegis is still in rotation, so that would probably be the go-to Haven deck. You'll be looking at a much more control-orientated deck overall. Stormhaven's probably not going to be around anywhere near as the same capacity, especially since we're losing almost all the bird amulets. But I can definitely see a decent control deck coming out of it. Then Dragonrend Quake, 4-drop gold spell, Dragoncraft of course. Destroy all damaged followers, deal 1 damage to all undamaged followers. Not a huge fan of this card, just because the destroy all damaged followers condition is a little difficult to do all the time. I mean, Breath of the Salamander is about the only card I can think to combo with this, because of the stat line that it is. Deal 1 damage to all undamaged followers is meh as well. You know, this is just a worse barrage and cards like that. So I don't know why you'd really want this, unless for some reason Dragon just becomes a class that, you know, can whittle down cards really easy, or if Forest or something still stays really relevant, or the new puppets, as an example, could become too strong and deal 1 damage might be really useful. But the destroyed all damage followers part, I just feel like you're not going to get enough activation out of it consistently, especially as a 4-drop. but we'll really have to wait and see if a deck can be built kind of around this, or this can just fit into a deck that functions pretty well. Then we have Treasure Map, 1-drop spell, neutral. Put a random one of the following cards from your hand, into your hand. Forest of Dreams, Arthurian Light, Enchanted Library, Phoenix Roost, Grave Desecration, Bloodfed Flower Bed, or Pegasus Sculpture. So, I'm not going to go through what every single one of these cards does. If you want to check those out, these are actually all older cards from older sets, so you can quite easily just go and take a look at those on multiple sites. Shadowverse has their own set. You can also go onto Golem, which is great for searching for cards. But just a couple off the top of my head here, I think Enchanted Library is Rune, which gives you a spell. Phoenix Roost, halve everything. They're just a couple off the top of my head. Phoenix Sculpture summons a Pegasus Sculpture summons a Pegasus. Those sort of cards, they're just a good way to introduce old cards, especially for a 1 cost. I think this is a really cool little card. Going to be very inconsistent and random, but you may find some room in, say, a Rune deck if you're looking for either spell boosting or you're looking for just some extra kind of draw with something a little fun in it. I don't see it being overly competitive, but for a 1-drop, you never really know, because 1-drop stat line is just so easy to slot in on turn 1. Then we have Aria, Guiding Fairy, 4-drop 3/3. This is the rework of Aria. Still a little unsure whether the leader Aria is going to be separate from the Aria Guiding Fairy. From what I've talked about with other people, it looks like that's going to be the case. So you'll have Fairy Princess Aria and Aria Guiding Fairy as 2 separate cards. Whether Fairy Princess Aria is a basically alt art in this set or not, we're not going to be sure, because we are getting 3 alt art leaders from the birthday poll, and of course Aria was one of them. But this is, of course, going to be a card, so why not? It's a Fanfare, put a Fairy Wisp into your hand. I can show you that in a moment. Fanfare, enhance 9, put fairies into your hand until it's full. A hand can hold 9, of course, so I don't go much on this card personally. I mean, the Fairy Wisps are pretty average once I show you what they do, and the filling your hand for 9 cost for a 3/3 just doesn't seem that good. Maybe if you do need more fairy generation, but I just feel like Forest's going to go in a slightly different direction unless we get something that can really take advantage of those fairies again. And then there's Fairy Wisp, that's the one you get. It's a 0-drop 1/1. Fanfare, banish this follower if at least 2 cards were played this turn. This card just doesn't seem good. I mean, 0 as a 1/1 is fine. That's basically how puppets function. The banish this follower if at least 2 cards were played this turn means at most you're playing 2 of these. Play 2 of these, you can't play any more. Sure, you might be able to use these to bulk yourself up to 2, but if you're really using it that way, unless we get a lot more support for the at least 2 other cards were played this turn mechanic, I don't know if this will be as good as anything else really. You could probably put almost anything in that slot that would play a little bit better, but we will have to wait and see if that support comes. We've got heaps of cards to still release. After all, tokens don't count to the total in the set, so we've seen hardly any cards overall. Most classes have only had 4 to 5 cards real total, some as low as 2 to 3, so Portal of course with the most, because they are getting 40 plus cards with 11 basics, which is just crazy. Next up, we've got Empyreal Swordsman. So it's an 8-drop 6/6, which seems to be a pretty favoured stat line by Cygames. Portalcraft. At the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to an enemy leader. If Resonance is active for you, deal 4 damage instead. Same effect for the Evolve. So this one interests me a little bit. I mean, an 8-drop kind of sucks. I don't like that much. The Resonance deal 4 damage instead, though, is quite interesting. I feel like this has got an okay body for its stat line. It's a pretty consistent stat line, so that's not too bad. As an 8-drop, it might be difficult, and I don't know how Portalcraft will handle that. Maybe in an artifact-style deck, but we're not really sure how artifacts and puppets are going to play, especially since, of course, we haven't seen the bulk of the cards yet. But we do have a rough idea that, you know, puppets are going to be one kind of defined deck, artifacts are going to be another. And looking at an IGN interview from today, when I made this video, of course, they actually talked to the I think the art director or community director or whoever it was, and he did mention that he can see definitely one hybrid deck between artifacts and puppets existing, so it'll be interesting to see what cards make that happen. Then we have Flower Doll, Portalcraft 2-drop 1/2. Last word, if you have at least 4 cards in your hand, put a puppet into your hand. If you have less than 3 cards or less in your hand, put a puppet and a Flower Doll into your hand. So this one plays on another interesting mechanic that I like a lot, which is hand size. similar to how Forest does, so it's obviously not going to be very unique, but I do like how it's 4 cards in your hand. If you have at least 4 cards, put a puppet in your hand, so you're still getting that puppet, and then if you have 3, you get to put another Flower Doll in your hand, so that's really good. I mean, being able to cycle Flower Doll, you can go from an empty hand after playing, say, all your puppets one turn, to basically stocking your hand back up in the next turn just by playing, say, 2 Flower Dolls in a single turn, because, I mean, if you go, say you have 1 Flower Doll and 1 other card, you play a Flower Doll, that puts you at 3, play another Flower Doll, that'll put you at 4, I think, total cards in your hand, which is a pretty good spot to be, especially since you could then play Flower Doll however you wanted after that, with having an extra 1 in your hand, 2 on board, and 2 available puppets. Then we have Toy Soldier, 3-drop 2-1, also Portalcraft. This is like the memeiest looking card. Its effect is, I think, okay, not the best, but like I said, we don't know how puppets are going to play out. It's fanfare, put a puppet in your hand. Whenever an allied puppet comes into play, give it +1/+0. So the evolve effect interests me slightly, just because puppets are pretty good with their rush mechanic that is built into them. Of course, they do banish themselves like ghosts do, but the +1 with the evolve could create some interesting later game combos where you've built up, say, a good army of puppets, you've gave your puppet storm with one of the other cards, so all you're waiting on is to play this out and just run them to the face for +1 extra damage every puppet. So you could go from an empty board straight to a full board and do, I don't know, let's say you boost every puppet by 1 already, you gave them all storm, you're going to have 4 puppets, so that would be 8 plus the extra 4 here, so you could do like a 12 damage burst from hand with basically just 3 play points. From there you could do whatever you wanted really with spells and any other cards that you wanted to get out earlier. So I think this card has some potential. It's definitely not the craziest one, but if puppets follow a more aggressive line or just a very orientated for small combos, I really would enjoy that. Then we have Veridic Ritual, which is basically a token card. It's similar to Thornburst, which is deal 3 damage to an enemy, which comes off the Fairy Queen. I'm pretty sure it's Fairy Queen. Yeah. Earthright, draw a card. So that's the only real difference, that Earthright draw a card effect, which when you look at the next one, you'll see why that's not as great. So this is an 8866. I think the artwork is pretty cool. This is one thing I like about this card. It's very unique in the art compared to other cards. It doesn't really fit the same mesh, which I actually enjoy in some cases. But anyway, this card is a ward, because of course it's a golem. Fanfare, transform each Earth Sigil amulet in your hand into a Veridic Ritual. So that's the first part. Fanfare, Earthright. Put a Veridic Ritual into your hand. Repeat for the remaining Earth Sigils in play. So this removes every Earth Sigil from your hand, every Earth Sigil from the board, and puts a heap of those spells in your hand. You're playing this on 8, so you know next turn is going to be 9. With these you could play at least 4 of them. That's a 12 damage burst from hand. If you do manage to somehow get a 1-drop Earthright into your hand the next turn off the draw, you can have maybe an extra draw off this. Or you can just hold on to these, say you've got 2 of them from the Earth Sigils that you've set up, and you could just have a couple and use those as a kind of finisher. Just some options for the card. I would put it on the same level as Hulking Giant nearly for the way it works, just because of how it removes so many Earth Sigils, which is really difficult. So unless we see some more Earth Sigil summoning cards or just Earth Sigil tokens to go to your hand or to the board even, I don't think this is going to be too big an impact, but I think it'll be a fun one to play and at least give a go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. That's all the new cards for now, but they're coming out pretty frequently. I mean, we've got so many cards coming. We've had so many cards already, especially tokens. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.